Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Rebecca Adehill Show. Today I am bringing you a very exciting conversation for my series Voices of Impact, and I am sitting down with the queen of self-love, embodiment and feminine leadership. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome Davina Rankin to the show.
Thank you so much. It's
Best day ever.
Best day ever. I'm so happy to be here. I feel like our paths were just meant to cross. We know too many of the same people. I feel like you're one of those people on my socials that I'm constantly like championing.
Yes.
What's that word? Championing. That's the word.
That's it.
So yeah, I'm always just cheering for you and you're always cheering for me. And it's like, I feel like I've known you for a million years. So
yeah, isn't it so nice?
Yeah, I love it.
I always think when I meet people online, like I'm so grateful for social media. Mm-hmm. I'm so grateful because I sit back and think I probably would not have met you, or maybe the universe would have delivered in some form.
Yeah.
But I've met so many incredible people through online, and I think we were just meant to make this happen. And it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been talking a lot. We've been flirting a lot online, so it's bound to happen.
And here we are. So I thought I'll be absolutely on brand and pop a little pink dress on just to really embody my feminine energy and just really set the tone for the conversation we're going to have today.
I'm flattered. I'm so flattered. I've come here and you've made me like a coffee with a little love heart on it. You're wearing pink. It's just like, this is the best day ever. So I'm like, I think I want you to adopt me now. It's just going to happen.
Currently in the process of doing all the paperwork to make that happen. So I am really curious. A little bit off air, we were speaking about magnetism and like really how we have both like attracted, one another to actually sit there and have this conversation, and how we can leverage magnetism to stand out online. What is magnetism to you?
Honestly, I think a human is the most magnetic when they are showing up uniquely as them. When they are not just one of the sheep. And I feel the people who are the most magnetic usually are the people that are doing things just a little bit differently, or are not afraid to voice their views or their thoughts or their takes on the world. And it might just be, slightly left to the norm, but it also makes other people think like, wow, like she's brave, or that's interesting. Like, I want to know more. That's a little bit like, oh, mysterious. So I think when you can fully embody your true essence and show up uniquely you, that is when people are just naturally kind of drawn to you. They want to know more, because how can you possibly, attract the things that are meant for you when you are not showing up as yourself? You're only kind of attracting the things that are the same energy of the same frequency as what you are showing up as.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Like you attract what you are, not what you want type thing.
Totally. Yeah.
Yes.
So people could say like, I want love, or I want to be heard, or I want to be seen, or I want to do all these things. But, are you embodying that? Are you embodying the person who is fiercely loud? Are you embodying the person who is like, brave and strong and opinionated and is voicing authentically, truly how they feel? Well, if not, how are you really going to be heard?
Oh, I really like that. Yes. I think that's really beautiful, because for me, magnetism, you almost can't articulate. Like, it's a feeling. For me, it's a feeling. It's the way they move their body. It's the look in their eyes. It's their tonality in their expression, the way they are, like the weights behind their words.
Yeah.
It's just such a deep knowing of who that person is. So it's not necessarily what they say.
Yes.
It's more so how we feel when they say it.
I just got goosebumps. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. And I think it's what makes someone so magnetic is because I think we all just want to be able to show our true selves, but we get a little bit afraid to. And when you see someone who is just solid in who they are and just, open and free and honest, it just makes you want more of that. It makes you want to be that kind of person too, because don't we all just so deeply want to show up as ourselves?
Yes.
And it's also the most terrifying thing in the world.
Yeah, because then I think it's a beautiful saying, like in order for you to attract your people, you will also repel the people that are not for you.
Yes.
And I think when, like even from a business perspective, often you'll see that the people's content that are a little bit vanilla, it's just like a little bit flat and they don't really have an opinion or they don't really go all in on one thing. It's just like a bit surface level and just like a little bit safe. They often don't get a lot of traction inside of their businesses because everything is just like a little bit vanilla.
Yeah.
When you have someone who is like, nah, this is what I believe, this is what I stand for, this is my truth, this is the direction that I'm going. That certainty and that confidence, I feel like that gives people a lot of safety.
Yes. And there's definitely there's a big difference between confidence and cockiness, I feel. Like there's a lot of people that show up online very cocky, you know, and that can also be a little bit of a repellent.
Yes.
So don't look at, you know, and the way you see cockiness and confidence is a feeling you get when you hear that person speak.
Yeah.
So like you said, it's a feeling. When someone speaks, you're like, oh, okay. And it's you can quickly tell, oh, I don't like that. That's too much.
Yeah.
If it's cockiness. But then also sometimes I guess you can be triggered too when people kind of show up in their confidence because like I said, everyone wants to be able to do that too.
Yeah.
But you also, I guess humans just kind of know the difference between cockiness and confidence.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what could be cockiness to some may be really confident to another.
Yeah.
And I think, and I often give this example, a lot of people that I work with now, I trigger the fuck out of them.
Yeah.
And I know that. They're like, because I believe that I'm very certain in who I am. I'm very confident in who I am and what I bring to the table and what I'm here to do. And I own that. And it's like, if you like it or not, it's not my problem type thing.
Yeah, none of my business.
Right, yes. And I think what's been really interesting is that people get very, very triggered. They will unfollow me, they follow me again, they unfollow me and be like, oh, and then, you know, they have whatever story they're making up in their mind. But then what's so beautiful when they are actually willing to see perhaps the part of themselves that they've either shut down or they are not fully embracing.
Yeah.
When they have the I am done moment with, actually, what would it feel like for me if I actually stepped into my truth? Where am I not expressing how I truly feel? When am I not embodying my actual truth? So now I'm going to make Rebecca or Davina wrong for standing in their truth. But then the moment when they go, no, now I'm ready. Now I'm ready to actually lean in. And I think it's so beautiful. And I can't even count how many times I've had clients go, you used to trigger the fuck out of me, but now I'm here. Now I'm ready. I've taken responsibility and now I'm ready to learn from you.
They always come back around.
And I'm like, I love that. But that was their journey and it's not our responsibility to even try to convince or fast track that process. They actually get to have that own journey on their own, on their own timeline. And when they are ready, they will decide if you're the right person for them or not.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's always nice because you don't want someone coming in when they're just a little bit like, ugh. It's kind of nice when you can get a client who's actually like dragged themselves from the pits of hell and like has reached breaking point and has like come real face to face with their shadows because then it's easier for you to coach. It's easier for you guys to talk more authentically because otherwise it can kind of play out when you have, you know, a one-on-one client or a group client or group clients or whatever. And if they haven't fully understood their behaviors or fully been faced with their shadows, there is still like, it is a bit hard. It's a lot of, it's very deep to try and understand your own behaviors and cycles and where you're cock blocking yourself. So,
yes. Yeah. I think that's a really good point because that's something that, you know, that's the deep work I get to do with my clients. I understand they come to me for business coaching, but I'm also witnessing a lot of patterns that must be broken down in order for them to actually see the results that they desire. What would be like a first step that we can get to even deepening our self-awareness or like what's even a shadow? Like what is shadow work?
Yeah, okay, beautiful question. So shadows are things that pop up for you, different sides of your personality. And the thing is, what we want to remember is that we're all human. We're all whole. we can all be jealous. We can all be manipulative. We can all be, angry, or that we can be all the things because we are human. We are all the things. We are whole. We are not just only kind, positive, happy, like all those things. So the thing with shadow work is highlighting the parts about ourselves that we don't quite like, but also understanding that is me. So when you can really highlight your shadows and you can bring awareness to, hey, these things pop up, and the shadow me starts to pop up when I get triggered, when this happens, or when I see a woman doing well, like I kind of want to tear her down a little bit, or I have this jealousy or rage inside of me. You're not wrong. You're just human. But if we can bring awareness to those parts of ourselves that sometimes we don't want to look at, sometimes we would prefer just to be like, no, I am holier than thou. Like, I am perfect. How dare you say that, like, maybe I'm self-sabotaging because I'm, like, terrified of abandonment or whatever it is. Our shadows and our cycles and our behaviors make up a large part of who we are. So if we can kind of acknowledge those things, then that's power. So when they do pop up, we kind of know how to handle ourselves and self-regulate, and we can kind of catch something before it turns into maybe another cycle.
Because I think that's really powerful because, I have done, deep work on myself. And I think that's always going to be a continuous journey. You will continue to always be able to see yourself like through new layers, and just you allow yourself to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah. And I think the more you trust yourself, and like you said, I think it all has to be led with a lot of love and compassion. It's like I know that I'm highly competitive, and the perfectionist in me is really loud. And I used to hold on to those two things and say, like, I am extremely competitive and I'm a perfectionist. The perfectionist side of me was essentially my fear of judgment from others, of putting something out to the world and it not being good enough and people judging me. And the competitor in me, like, that is really, if I'm not performing, I'm not lovable. Yes. If I don't have anything to show, I'm not lovable. And that was the story that I had created in my mind because I was sporty growing up and it was about sport and winning and this and that. And I did very well at a lot of things. I did well in dancing. Like, I sold car insurance when I was 16 and I was like at the top of the leaderboard selling freaking car insurance.
Doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me either. But I'm like, it was something about winning for me. And I had a conversation with my dad, who's here from Sweden at the moment. And I was talking to him about a book I'm reading, Surrounded by Idiots. And I said, Dad, you and I said, we are such reds. And he was like, what's a red? And I said, we are quite dominant. We are competitive. We're very direct. And if we are not winning, and he was like, yeah, but isn't the point winning? And I was like, that is such a red. I'm like, you're such a red. And then we had a conversation about that. I'm like, so why is it so important to win? And, we sort of went deeper, and I think that level of self-awareness are like, oh, what's my truth in this? Like, why is it so important for me? And how can I actually learn that to be more compassionate towards myself if I'm not winning? Yeah. And what defines winning for me, for instance? So I think and I used to make those versions of me wrong for a long time. But then when I learned to sit with them, to go, the perfectionist in me, oh, she's really loud at the moment, or the controller in me, very loud as well. What does she need in this moment?
Safety.
Right?
Yeah. So you need, when someone is feeling like, oh my God, I need to win, or it needs to be perfect, your body literally, like your nervous system, feels like there is a lion chasing after you. Like, it is a life or death situation for some people, especially like if they have struggled with, perfectionism or like acceptance and stuff like that their whole life. It's like, when they feel like there is a potential that they are going to not be accepted or not be loved or be rejected, it's crazy how it feels within your body. You really don't know the difference between whether it is a life or death situation. So when you acknowledge and you have done the shadow work and you can see these parts of yourself like, oh, wow, this really rules my life. And it, like, I'm really finding myself like coming back here with everything, it's kind of a time there where you can be like, okay, I am so safe. I need to find safety within my body. How can I do that? Whether it's through breath, whether it's through like meditation, whether it's through affirmations, whether it's through like somatic exercises, movement, or whatever it may be, just coming back to something that makes you realize like, hey, I'm in control. I am safe. I'm okay. I've got me. I can handle this situation.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess
that's really powerful.
Nervous system regulation, if you can master that and feel safe within your body, anything external of you can handle.
Yes, that is amazing. I think something that probably came to me a couple of years ago, I was actually on my way to the gym, and I could feel, I was moving through a lot in work, and like I just had this rapid growth, like things were just going crazy in the best way possible. But I could feel the more I was growing, the control on me was like, okay, is everyone happy? I've got everything, and I've got my kids and my husband. Like I've got like just that control. It just kept building.
Yeah.
And then something, I don't know what it was, it just washed over me when I walked into the gym, and it just literally dropped into my mind, and it was like, let go of the need to control everything, and you will feel the most in control like you've ever felt. And I just completely let go. And I remember running on the treadmill, and I was like, I have never felt so in control because I just let go.
Yeah. The big S word, surrender.
That's exactly what it was. I just surrendered to whatever is, like I can't control what they think, what they're going to do, what's going to happen here, what's going to happen there. And I think that anxious attachment that we can whether that's in business or relationships or friendships or, in whatever capacity that is, that will only disservice us in the long run. But the surrendering, how do we surrender? Like how do we have enough trust to surrender?
Yeah. And it's funny when you were talking about all of the different things, it's like, it's great to have the business that's killing it. It's great to have all the money. It's great to have the family. It's great to have an active social life and all of the things. But can your nervous system hold that? Can you hold that? Sometimes no. Sometimes everything can be going right. But if your internal world feels like you are like just, trying to claw your way up for air all the time, is that a pleasurable life? No, even though you look like you have all the things. So being able to surrender, one, it's actually really fucking hard. Like for women to sit back and surrender and not overthink and not worry and not be anxious about outcomes and other people and all of the things, it's hard, but there's so many different modalities and tools available to you, and a majority of them are free and are available to you at all times. So things like your breath, things like nature, things like journaling, and being able to put your thoughts to paper and just be like, oh, okay, so it's not 100 things that are going wrong right now. It's actually just one thing that I'm thinking 100 times. So, an overthinking mind is just a death trap for an entrepreneur.
Yes.
So the more that you can kind of brain dump, whether it be talk therapy, whether it be like some kind of holistic therapy, whether you have a healer or whatever it might be, your job as a human, I feel like we don't put enough emphasis on this, that our inner world is a direct reflection of our outer world. So if we are feeling jumbled and crazy on the inside and we're not feeling well, then our outer world is going to reflect that to us. So our job as human beings on this crazy planet, we need to make sure we are finding time for self-care, for self-love, for self-regulation. And I say to my clients all the time, I'm like, you need to do 3 things every single day. I don't care how busy you are, for you, whether it be intentionally just going outside and drinking your coffee and sitting in the sun and taking a moment to yourself before the kids wake up.
Yeah.
Whether it be wearing your favorite knickers because they make you feel sexy. Whether it be, journaling for 10 minutes or reading, 10 books of your favorite, 10 pages of your favorite book. Whether it be going outside and getting fresh air or just intentionally breathing.
Yes.
How many people are probably listening to this podcast right now and like, fuck, I don't even know if I've taken a breath.
Yes.
Because we're too busy. We're too in our head. We're thinking about too much stuff. But we can hold it all.
Yeah.
We can do it all. We can have it all. We just need to make sure that within our own little atmosphere, within our own little universe, that we are in alignment, that we are looking after ourselves, that we are taking the time to nourish ourselves in the right way and to release what is no longer serving us, to do the work. And the work is hard because, you know, for a lot of people, we probably are holding on to traumas and limiting beliefs and all that kind of stuff that are hard to look at, the shadow work especially. But if you want to be successful in life, you need to invest in looking after yourself and your inner world first before your outer world can change.
That is amazing. Yeah, I really love that. I was sitting out on the deck this morning and I have my little morning routine, and that's just my moment. I call our house like the Zen house in the morning because we love a slow morning.
Yes.
And it's like it's not until we get up like after breakfast, say like 7:30 from like 8 o'clock, then we're busy, then we're on. But before then, I make myself a coffee, I go and sit outside, and I've got this beautiful deck, and I look at the sun and I sit there with my morning coffee. And my dad was sitting with me this morning, who's here, and he goes, "Is this where you sit?" And I was like, "This is where I sit, Dad.
This is my spot."
It's just, it brings me so much joy.
Yeah, and pleasure. We rob ourselves of pleasure. Yeah. We're too busy. You know, there's too many other things more important than our own pleasure. And I think that's where we go wrong. And I think that's where I have really been able to thrive in the last few years of my life, is I was able to tap back into what brought me pleasure. How was I able to bring in more play into my life? How was I able to bring in more joy? How was I able to enjoy those smaller moments and have so much more gratitude for what I have, instead of constantly fucking wishing for more and wanting more? If I had more, I absolutely would not have been able to hold it because I was a mess.
Yes.
You know? So it's like, take the time. It will all come. It will absolutely all come. Coming back to the magnetism piece, when you are looking after yourself and when you are loving yourself hard, self-love is one of the highest vibrations you can sit in.
Yeah.
Also gratitude. So you tell me, someone who is sitting in a place where they feel so abundant and radiant within their own world, who isn't successful in their outer world. And success will look different to everyone. It doesn't necessarily mean you're driving a Porsche.
No, exactly.
It can mean that you get to have a slow morning with your babies.
Yeah, 100%.
And everyone's happy and healthy.
Like nothing makes me feel more successful than a slow morning.
Totally.
Right. Yeah,
so
definitely.
I think the biggest thing, if you want to be successful in your outer world and you want the business to thrive and you want your relationships to thrive, you first need to take a really hard look at your inner world. You know, where is there dis-ease within your body? How much pleasure are you being able to sit in every day? How much joy are you allowing yourself to receive? Because if you are not able to receive joy and pleasure, if you are blocking yourself from that, I guarantee you're blocking yourself from making money too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's really important, especially like even in relationships as well, and being able to communicate what you need. And something that I mentioned to you briefly off air before, and I think I know, for instance, like me, I'm naturally in my masculine. And when someone reflected that to me a few years back, and it was a man who said, he goes, "Oh, you've cut your hair short, Rebecca." And I said, "Yeah, so like I've always wanted a short haircut." He was like, "Okay." He goes, "When was the last time you wore a dress?" And I was like, fuck's this guy, like telling me what to wear, like shut up. And then I was like, oh, he was like, so what? He goes, "What do you got on now?" And this was a video. So he saw what it was a coach. I just want to highlight this. I paid him to have this conversation. Yeah. And I was there in jeans and a button-up shirt and thinking I was looking all professional, and I cut my hair shorter and shorter and shorter. And I could just see, and he reflected, like put up this massive mirror for me. He goes, "You are so in your masculine. You are now starting to change the way you look." And I was like, looked down at myself and I was like, what the fuck? Thinking like there was nothing wrong with the way I looked, but I'm like, it is so true. I did not feel confident in a dress. I had this other thing that was instilled in me when I worked in real estate. If you show your shoulders, no one's going to take you seriously. So I had years from about 2012 up until about 2019, 20, I never showed my shoulders. especially if it was like, like I could go to the beach, of course, and like when I was off work, I could wear a singlet. But if I ever wanted someone to take me seriously, I would cover my shoulders. And it was so ingrained in me. And then we had that conversation. He goes, I want you to finish this meeting. And he goes, and go and put a dress on. And I was like, mate. He was like, no, go and put on a fucking dress. And that was really when I started to lean more into my feminine.
Yeah.
Because I realized, I've just the 3 kids and birthing, breastfeeding, all the things whilst running a company, and like we were just navigating so many things. And it was just a controller in me, more masculine, just to thinking I was holding it all. Yeah. But really, like that was just leading me down a very dark road type thing. And I wasn't unhappy. Like I could really catch myself before, but I could really start to see the patterns. Anyhow, what was really interesting is that I went to put my dress on, and then I start to use really clear transitions in terms of when I was what. So when I'm work, Rebecca, I'm accepting that I'm heavily in my masculine. Yeah. When I'm coaching, let's fucking go. Like if we want to move, like come to me, we'll make progress. We can do a lot of things and we can move very fast. But when I come home, that role needs to stay in the office. I cannot bring Coach Rebecca home.
No.
When I do, my husband's like, back to the car, do your transition, come back in. But what was so beautiful about that is that I had to learn to communicate what I needed from my husband. So, for instance, I would come home and I would get him to hug me whilst I was holding my hands like this. And I would get him to wrap his arms around me, and I would say, I'm just a little one, aren't I? And he goes, you are just a little one. It's like I'd gone to work, been a big girl. Yes. Now I had to come home and I said, I'm just a little one. And I wouldn't even hug him back. Yeah. And I said, I need a forward kiss. Tell me to go and wash my face, get changed, and make me a cup of tea. Now that is his thing. And it makes me feel so loved. And I can really surrender into my feminine when I come home. Yeah. But if I had not communicated that with him, it probably would not have happened, because he would not have known that that was a problem. Yeah. Until I said, this is what I need for my feminine to feel so safe to go, you've got me. That feeling of genuinely feeling held.
And supported, yeah. And allowing yourself to feel that way too.
Is that what you are noticing, that a lot of women don't allow themselves to be held by partners or, friends or...
Yeah, receiving for women is a big one. Like it's hard for women to feel like they are worthy enough to be spoiled or be looked after. Like a lot of women... are in the mindset that they have to do it all and they have to wear all the hats. And then in return, that can show up in resentment in their relationships. And, they don't do anything. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. And you're like, well, have you given them the space to, have you communicated that that's what you need? But also too, for women to communicate, that's for them to be that authentic and be that open and vulnerable with another human, one, takes a lot of courage, because, again, if you are wanting to communicate authentically and vulnerably, it takes a lot of strength because if we're actually telling people how we really feel, are they going to abandon me? Are they going to... So that's why, again, nervous system work is really important, because it allows you to then feel so safe within yourself that you can allow yourself to be seen and heard by others in a really vulnerable way. And in return, you're then able to receive the support that you so desperately need and also deserve. Yeah. And, also a lot of people think that when they go home, they've got to do all the things and blah, 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 blah. But it's also really beautiful when you are able to have that conversation with your husband and allow him to step into his divine masculine role and step up for you and be the nurturer for you and, look after his little one. So it's just a beautiful way of just juggling that masculine and feminine energy, because we can be both at all, all the time. But understanding where you are sitting on the scale in each moment will also be able to help you, fully live your life in more alignment. But the awareness of where you're sitting is very important. So that's where the embodiment comes in.
Yes. And before, I really want to touch on embodiment, but what really stood out for me then, because you were saying something before, like, are you embodying almost like what you want to call in, right? And I had a conversation with someone the other day, and, you know, she sort of said something along the lines of, you know, I do all the things and, you know, my husband this, my husband that, and, you know, had the standard kind of husband chat. But I'm like, I can't stand it. I can't stand it. And I feel very strongly about this. I went to one mother's group once, and I'm not shitting on all the mother's groups, but the one I went to, they all sat around the table and they fucking complained about their husbands. Yeah. And then they came around to me and they all looked at me waiting for my turn to complain. And I was like, my husband's fucking brilliant.
You're like, I'm just a little one.
I'm just a little. I'm just a little one. And I'm not saying that my husband's perfect and we have this perfect relationship and we're never it's not what I'm saying. Yeah. But I'm not going to go out and bag out my husband in a group of people and I was like, I just did not like that. And that really came back to the conversation I had with someone the other day. I said, when was the last time you complimented your husband? She couldn't tell me. She goes, no, I just don't, because I said, no. I said, have you complimented your husband when he's mowed the lawn, when he's taken the fucking garbage out, when he's cooked you a meal, when he's done all the small little things? You are currently only focusing on all the things he's doing wrong. Yeah. And you are highlighting that. I said, when I notice that my husband has done the lawn at the front and he has gotten out of his way to get the whippersnapper out, and like the edges of my lawn is just like, I know that that's like a man's proudest work. Yeah. Or even when he's like cleaned the pool, I was like, babe, you did the lawn today, didn't you? Yeah. I said, you got the whippersnapper out. He was like, you saw that? I was like, of course I saw that. I said, it's looking amazing. I said, you're fucking amazing. It's like, if you want to make a man confident, pump him the fuck up. And I promise you, he will do more good.
Yeah. And it's also that thing of like what you focus on expands. You know? So if you're choosing to only look at the things that are going wrong, of course there's only going to be more things that are going on. But, you know, it's also the work within understanding where you are when it comes to like your love languages as well. Like some people need affirmations or physical touch or blah, blah, blah. And then your husband's way of like giving you love is like acts of service and like, you know, that whole thing. But if you are someone who doesn't even recognize acts of service as a love language because affirmations and physical touch is your thing, you're only going to be like, he's not touching me. Yes. He hasn't told me I'm beautiful. But like the poor guy's just mowed the whole, you know what I mean?
Scrubbed the pool.
He's got heat stroke. It's just doing that inner work and just understanding each other. Oh my God, I have a cramp on my hip. It's just understanding each other and going a little bit deeper and again doing the work of that, you know, self-awareness and understanding who you are and who your people are on deeper levels. Like you can never go wrong.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We were touching on embodiment.
Yes.
And I think embodiment is such an important piece in business. I often speak about embodiment, like it's not really what you say. Like if you can show that you embody what you do, people will naturally like gravitate towards you. And I think people that aren't embodied in what they do, I think a lot of imposter syndrome will possibly show up because of it, or they may not get the success that they want to because they are simply not embodied in something yet. Yeah. How do we become embodied, and what's like the definition of like being embodied in what you do?
Yeah, I guess firstly knowing who you are. You know, understanding your values, like doing a quick value check is always invaluable. It's always really important because how often do we actually just be like, okay, what do I find really valuable? Because sometimes it changes all the time. Like sometimes adventure and like freedom and stuff like that can be a top priority and a top value for you. But then in other seasons of life, it's like, you know, money and like success and that, like all of that is so fine and it changes all the time. But just keeping like a good tab on yourself and having a look at your values and just making sure like, am I acting within my values? Am I showing up as the person who, you know, values these things? Am I acting and talking and selling with integrity? Is what I'm doing something that I truly believe in? Because if it's not, if you're just if you are hustling to try and make heaps of money and that's like stressing you out and money is like the forefront of your business, but your biggest value is like, oh God, I don't know, like freedom
Health.
or family or health or whatever, then it's going to be really hard for you to sell because like you're going to be too busy, you know, trying to sell and trying to make money, but it's not actually like fulfilling you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I absolutely know what you mean. And I think that is such important work because we're all going to value. And I think what's really interesting that I think for a lot of people, our true values, they often stem from a void. So for instance, like wealth is one of my highest values along with family and love and health. But for instance, that really stems from the feeling of never fucking having money. So now I really value the choices and the freedom and the flexibility creating wealth actually brings me and my family.
Yes.
Being able to sit down and have a morning coffee with my dad, who I flew out from Sweden, like that to me, I feel so successful and rich because they are ticking my 2 highest values or 3 highest. Like there is love, generosity, wealth, family, simply because I made the decision. And I think if people aren't genuinely valuing certain things, they can only do it for so long.
Totally. Yeah. Before you feel worn out, before you feel like you're pushing shit uphill and like you need a break or you're going to be like overwhelmed and, you know, burnt out and all the things. So definitely just keeping your goals and your values aligned with your actions is really important. And also just having a really beautiful connection to self. Like embodiment really is just you being able to stand in your truth and know who you are confidently. And that takes a lot of work. And the work can show up in so many different ways. And everyone's journey is very unique in how they find themselves. But, you know, making the time, like spending the same amount of effort and energy and love that you pour into all of the other people around you, into yourself constantly, daily, being on top of your thoughts, you know, understanding your thought. It's actually really fucking exhausting. Like when you become a bit more woke and like awake and conscious of the person that you are, because like I'm telling you, my brain doesn't stop. Like I'm consciously making decisions on whether I'm going to let like this intrusive thought win or whether I'm going to choose another one. So just constantly checking in on yourself and seeing where you're sitting on your emotional scale and seeing what kind of emotion you are acting out of constantly. And if you're feeling yourself going into like one of those lower vibrations, okay, I've picked up on that. How can I get myself out of this? And just being on top of your own thoughts, feelings, and emotions constantly. And I'm so sorry. I wish there was an easier answer for you.
No, but how do we take that step? Because I think it's like that. Like it's hard, but it's also really fucking easy because we have a choice. Like you're not a tree. If you like, you can actually move on things. You can change it. We can evolve. We can grow. And I know when you're in the moment, I think something that's worked really well for me when I noticed like, so back in the day, the procrastinator in me used to be really loud and I used to lack this ability to follow through. I started something when it was all exciting and then it got hard and I'd be like, fuck that, I'll just do something else. And then I'm like, that is my gap. Like that is literally where my next level lies.
Yeah.
And I started to use affirmations and I said, I'm a fucking queen at following through. I leave no room for procrastination. And that was a decision. I made a decision. I know where it was. I know what time it was. I was sitting in my office like many years ago. Since that day, I do not procrastinate. I am the queen of taking action. I'm the queen of implementing. I'm a queen of following through. So sometimes we think it has to be such a journey for us to make a change. And I believe it can also just be a decision.
Totally. Absolutely.
Not going to be easy, but it get to be just a decision. And that really made me feel empowered because I'm like, I don't need to go to therapy. But hey, I love therapy. I do go to therapy. I think it's amazing. But I'm like, in order for me to make this change, like sometimes we think it has to be this big thing, but I'm like, decide.
It can happen in a day.
It can happen in a day.
Yeah. And the way I think about things and the way I make my choices through the day is I envision like Davina 2.0. Like I already think I'm Davina 5.0 compared to 2 years ago, but that was only 2 years ago.
Yes.
Like Davina today is nothing like Davina 2 years ago or felt like Davina 2 years ago.
Love that.
So I always think that it's like a little visualization thing that I do constantly when I'm like, do I want to or don't I want to? And I just always think that there's like these 3 parallel universes. And there's like the one here where just kind of keeps me coasting, or there's the one down here that'll kind of set me backwards, or there's the one up here that like if I make this decision now, whether it be like just getting up 5 minutes earlier today, but I'm constantly visualizing these 3 lines and I'm like, choose the top one. Choose the top one, choose the top one. And it means every day, if I'm choosing the top one every single day, that's 1% better than yesterday because the top one is constantly evolving. It's constantly stepping up. And it's not in massive, massive ways. It could just be like, I'm going to walk for an extra 10 minutes today. Like, am I going to turn down this street or am I going to go that street? Because if I keep choosing 10 more minutes every time I go for a walk, that's like, 50% longer than my usual track.
Yes.
That's 50% harder than I'm going to be working. That's like 50% more emails I'm going to get done today for me to be able to have more flexibility. You know what I mean?
I really like this.
Yeah, it's just my little visualization that I'm constantly choosing the top tier version of myself. And then eventually you are stepping into her. Every time you choose that higher plane, you're stepping into her constantly and embodying that version of you that is kicking the goals, that is succeeding, that is, looking after her. And I kind of also look at myself as not just me. I look at myself as like future me and then baby me, like inner child me. So it's like constantly my decisions, I'm like, what is best for us? What's going to keep my inner child happy and safe and, comfort her and do right by her. And then also what's going to make future me proud.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
I don't
think I've said that out loud before, actually.
Yeah, that is really beautiful that it's like we can take, and I think again, that comes back to that self-love. It comes back to that compassion of just being so compassionate with ourselves and that inner child and like really sitting with her and what does she need right now? Like I can tell you really fucking loud right now.
Yeah.
What do you need to like how can we make you feel safe? And I think that's really beautiful.
And I think we also forget that we are worthy of making those decisions for ourselves. And sometimes when we are selfish, it is honestly the most selfless thing you can do is to choose yourself sometimes because if you're not choosing yourself and you're not filling your own cup, you cannot be of service to others. You can't be there for the family, for your husband, for your clients. And I always say, like, I don't pour from my cup for anyone.
Yeah.
I don't pour for my daughter. I don't pour for my family, no one. I simply fill them from overflow because I pour so much into myself.
Oh.
So I never have to deplete myself for anyone.
Oh.
You know what I mean? People are always like, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I'm like, well, I don't pour at all. Because I give myself so much that the ripple effect for my family and my friends and my clients, it's effortless,
And it's your overflow.
Yeah.
I'm really curious what you said about that higher version of you, that vision. Mm-hmm. How do you find that? Like, how do we get to like what that is? Because I think in order for us to be able to choose her, we must know what she embodies.
Yeah.
And how do we find her?
So a really beautiful exercise for you to kind of, some people forget that they even are able to have intentions and able to like make up a dream life for themselves. So something that I do with my clients, one, I really encourage them to like get into the feeling of what they would want their life to feel like. So whether it be like a journal entry where they talk about what their perfect day would be. So I'm waking up in my beautiful apartment by the beach. I can smell the water. My daughter's like playing in the next room. My husband's bringing me coffee. We have a beautiful relationship. So just going into real depth and real emotion when you're like creatively writing actually brings up, it's a really powerful way for you to get clear on what you want your life to feel like and what that version of you looks like and how she operates. And once you see that vision, it's like, fuck, you can't unsee it. I want to wake up in my beachside apartment. I want my husband and our relationship to be that great. And then also just tapping into like what future me would look like getting really detailed on like, what does her face look like? What's her essence? How is she standing? Like, is she sensual? What's her stomach look like? Has she been working out? Like, is she, is her skin clear? Are her eyes bright? Like, does she command a room? So getting like really clear on like what future you or like Davina 2.0 would look like. Because once you see that, you can't unsee that. And a lot of my clients can be like, but I'm not good at visualizing. I've never been able to see anything. And I'm like, okay, like, do you worry about the future? Yeah. Do you get anxious about the past? Yeah. I'm like, babe, you're visualizing and making up these stories and situations in your head constantly and like bringing up images and memories. And, a majority of the time, the things that we're worrying about and anxious about, they're not actually how they played out. We've embellished these stories. So they're a lot bigger and brighter and worse off when we're thinking about them. So I'm like, you can visualize.
Yes.
Visualize the good shit. Take time each day to put yourself in that space. So I think that's a really powerful way of getting clear on who you want to become, what that life looks and feels like. Even things like vision boarding as well. Like, there has not been a year in the last 5 years that the things on my vision board haven't come true.
Love that for you.
Yeah. Same.
Love that.
And like, not even true in the way of like, oh, yay, this has come true. It's like 2 years ago, I'm like, I just want to take myself to a retreat in Bali. And now I run retreats in Bali and get paid for it. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not up to you to worry about how you're going to make it happen. Just get clear on what you want, because if you can get clear on your desires and you feel like you are worthy enough to achieve them, the worthiness piece can come with, doing your shadow work, understanding yourself better and like getting that nervous system under control. But once you know what you want, remember it. Keep a clear vision of it in your, like on your phone, in your house. Remember it, because it's going to happen for you. Your brain, the universe, whatever it will be, will make sure that those paths will start opening for you once you realize and you decide that you want that and you are worthy of that.
Oh, I really love that. Once you decide.
And you know how we were saying before, like what you focus on expands. So if we're focusing on the lack of how much we don't have a Porsche, how much we don't have this, how shitty our life is, we're just going to keep going through that day in and day out. But subconsciously, when you can look at a vision board, whether it be in your office, whether it be on your phone, you're constantly looking at that amazing board that you have of all of these beautiful pictures and the feelings that you had while you were making it, it alters like your chemistry.
Yeah.
All of us, it's like the red car theory when someone's like, oh, did you see that red car with the green tires? You're like, I've fucking never seen a red car with the green tires. What are you talking about? And then you leave and you're like, holy shit, they're everywhere.
They're everywhere, yeah.
So until you can, acknowledge that, one, you have the desire, two, you decide that you are worthy of it and that you want it, you will be surprised how much you will notice the different pathways that will start leading you to the desired outcome. Yeah. Because it's endless. The opportunities are endless. No one is luckier than one another. We just choose to take different paths to get us to our end desire or our end goal.
And I think on top of that as well, I think we often have access to a lot of those things. So for instance, like my perfect day starts with like a lemon water and a coffee when, the sun is hitting my face, to be like, do you have access to that right now?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yeah. Okay, amazing. Ask your husband to make you coffee if he's at home. And okay, you want to go to Pilates and you want to dress like this. Like there are so many things that you can actually do that you have access to right now if you choose to focus on those things. And I think one thing that has been really powerful for me, or two things especially, number one, I started to say that I'm an absolute magnet for opportunities. Like everywhere I go, I call in opportunities. And I think that is really defined by me knowing exactly where I'm going. Yeah. And I think when you have that amount of clarity and certainty in your direction, it's not a matter of like if it's going to happen. It will certainly happen because you are constantly looking for opportunities, looking for connections. And I'm like, I'm open. I know where I'm going. I know who I need to become in the process. I know what I need to let go of to let that come in. It will present very quickly, in my opinion. But I think what I'm really curious about, and perhaps where I kind of maybe I don't disagree as such, or maybe I do. I think maybe there has been some misinformation in how people speak about manifestation or journaling, and where I'm really big on logic.
Totally.
That I
Red.
Right, red.
Yellow.
She's a red. Yeah. Well, and I think both are extremely important.
Yeah.
And I think what I found with a lot of clients, they're like, yeah, I 100% want to get to $1 million per year. They're like, but how? I think there is definitely room for logic in the process of calling something in, that it's not about sitting back, waiting for something to happen. And I think it's like the universe will deliver. But I also believe in aligned, consistent action.
Absolutely.
And I want to get your take on that.
Totally. And I think the biggest thing is the getting clear part, the dreaming big, getting clear, understanding, okay, this is a desire of mine. Cool. We've got that sorted. And then a way that I like to bridge the gap between, you know, that and then even the action part of it is, who do I have to be? Who is Davina 2.0, the person who has those things? How does she walk? Okay, well, she's confident. Okay. And if she's, you know, getting all these opportunities and being a speaker, and this is something on the, you know, board, a manifestation board, she wants to be a public speaker. What does that require? Okay. She needs to be educated. She needs to know what the fuck she's talking about. She needs to be, you know, grounded. She needs to be fucking, I don't know, all of the things. So you start going through the different beliefs that that person would have, the different behaviors that she would have, the kind of, you know, how she presents herself, and mainly the core beliefs and values that 2.0 version of you would have. And then from there, I like to go into, okay, well, then what kind of action do we need to do to become that person who's achieving those things?
Love that.
Do you understand?
Yeah. So we really take it that, and I think that's important, that it's not just going to happen. If you're like, okay, this is what I want, now I'm going to write it down in my journal. It's like, okay, great. Like, now what do I need to embody? Like, how do I show up? How do I call in opportunities? It's like,
I mean, there's totally room for both. Like you definitely have to have a plan. Like you do need to have a plan. Like you can't just become an astronaut if you have not fucking studied. You know what I mean? Like you've got it. There are steps, but also don't be so closed off that like you can't have money just drop in unexpectedly, because sometimes you can't plan these things. Sometimes you do win the lotto. Sometimes you do run into the love of your life at the end of the street. You couldn't have planned that.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's also just, there's two parts here. There is the unknown universal laws and all of the things that we don't, you know, we can't see at play. And then there's also your part of it that you need to make sure that, how can I get myself as close to my desire as humanly possible, and then also let faith and, you know.
I really love that. Yeah,
so
100%.
there's the two things. But then there's also another part. So I was doing a workshop, and all the women in the room had these little jars, and they were called warm and fuzzy jars. So everyone throughout like the week were like writing little warm and fuzzies for the other women, and you got to take them home to see what other people have said about you, which is like beautiful.
That's lovely.
And I fucking love that stuff, because like affirmations is my kink.
Yeah.
But some other women were like, oh God, that's cringe. I don't even want to look at that. But then one of their biggest things is like, they want to be heard, or they want love, or they want acceptance and all those things. But I was like, that's funny that, you know, that's something that you really want, although you are literally stopping yourself from receiving it.
Ooh, interesting.
You know? That's why the inner
self-sabotaging there.
Totally. And that's why the inner work, the shadow work, is so important when you want to, you know, you can have all the goals and aspirations and like the manifestations and all those things, but if you haven't done the work on yourself to see like, hey, actually, could I be self-sabotaging myself? Am I even allowing myself to be able to hold the things on my vision board?
Oh, I think that is 100%.
So you see how this whole conversation, it all starts with self. It all starts with self.
Yeah, I really love that. I think another question I have for you, there is a lot of conversations around leading with your intuition. And I think I'm very strong on like feeling in my gut when something feels right, when something feels off. And it's like my body's very clear to signal to me when it's like, no, that's a big no, or that's a big yes. Like I can feel it in my entire body, in my energy.
Yes.
But if someone is a little bit unsure or not quite, maybe they don't quite know how to lead with their intuition or even make decisions based on what their gut and their intuition tells them. How do we go about that if they're curious about that?
Education and the language that you use around your emotions. So a lot of us like can feel something in our stomach and be like, oh, I'm anxious. I'm really anxious about this. It must be bad. But then you're like, am I anxious or is it anticipation? Or am I excited? So just making sure, like I think that's one thing that we really miss at school is like that emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And really educating ourselves on like the full wheel of emotions and what each of them are and where they're kind of like related, but they can also mean two completely different things. So the embodiment piece and the self-awareness, but also just that emotional intelligence and just being curious about what you are feeling and feeling into that and allowing yourself space is really important, because ideally that's how you want to. That's what an embodied person, that's how they live their life, because they are like, no, this doesn't feel good. I do not want to go that way. This decision doesn't feel good for me. This decision feels good.
Yes.
So, and feeling like really supported and strong and stable in your decisions and not second guessing yourself. But definitely, like I would suggest you just do some homework and have a look at all of the different emotions. Because even when I look at it, I'm like, oh, fuck, there's so many. There's so many. And like, I think the most overused words that we have is overwhelmed, anxious, like angry, sad. Sometimes they're not always those things. Sometimes it can be disappointment, or sometimes it can be, you know, I don't know, there's a million.
Yeah.
So I think
definitely.
if you're having trouble figuring out how you're feeling, just do a little bit of research and just sit with yourself for a little longer and just have a look at all of the different types of emotions there are. And then become familiar with the ones that you are experiencing the most. And I always suggest for my clients to like sit with their eyes closed and see where they're feeling it. So are you feeling it
in
like
the body?
And like just bringing awareness to that sensation. Because once the emotion is felt and acknowledged, usually it starts to dissipate. Emotions are just want to be recognized and acknowledged, and none are wrong. That's something that I've really wanted to make sure my daughter understands, like, this is so okay for you to feel like this, and they pass. We just need to acknowledge, like, okay, this is how I feel. How can I get out of my feels? Okay, journaling will help me, or talking about them, or actually speaking up at that. This is how I feel. I feel rejected right now. I feel embarrassed. You know,
that's really good, and especially with kids. And I think we can really learn from, and even looking at our children. It's like, you know, my eldest son, he's like super sporty and like very, very good at most sports, but he gets really nervous.
Yeah.
But his nerves is like a sore tummy.
Yeah.
He gets a sore tummy, and then he goes, this is bad, like, because it doesn't feel good. The sore tummy is like, oh, it's not a nice feeling. But he's kind of excited and a little bit nervous. And I think once we learn to really name the feeling, so like that feeling, I know it's uncomfortable, but it's not a bad feeling.
No, it's
that
fine,
feeling in your tummy, it means that you're excited about what's going to happen when you step out on the field. And then once he learned that, he's like, I've got a sore tummy, Mum. I'm excited.
Yeah.
It's like it's actually not bad. It's just his way of like, oh, the anticipation of like going and doing something, and like witnessing him working through that has been quite empowering to actually see, where he's thinking this is something wrong, this is something bad, I can't do it. Yeah. To like moving through that, I go, oh, no, I'm excited. I'm excited to do it. I can do it. Yeah. And I think something so small, but I think, you know, as mums, we look at our little ones and we're like, fuck, I'm so proud of you for like learning to moving through their emotions, because sometimes it's like it shows up as anger. Well, are you angry? No. You just wanted attention and you felt lonely.
Yeah.
Oh.
I realized really quickly that like, wow, we didn't learn this stuff. So I have 3 children's books. So one is called Empowered Moo, and it's just all affirmations. And my daughter knows it back to front. She knew it by the time she was like 2. She was saying all of the affirmations. And then the next one is, what's the next one? Mindful Moo. And it's talking about all of the emotions and different ways to be mindful and how to understand what's going on in your body. And then the third one's called The Love Within Moo. And it's basically Moo searching for love everywhere, like in her toy box or in the playground or with other kids, and she couldn't find it. And then she found it in the mirror, and talking about how the love is always within you. You don't need to search and use, external things to bring it.
That's beautiful.
But I was like, these are all the things that I've learned in my 30s. And I'm just like, fuck, I wish I knew this when I was younger.
Yeah.
So it's really beautiful to see that kids, are so much more emotionally intelligent than what we were, or especially what our parents were when they were younger, because it wasn't, normal to sit with your feels. It was like, no, go
be in your room, go away until you come out when you're happy type
and don't
thing.
cry. Like, put that away. No, that's too much. We can't. So, I think it's really important that like us as mums really encourage our children to like go through the feels. If they're in a bad way, like, cool, let them feel it. You got to feel it to heal it, and then talk about it.
Yes, you got to feel it to heal it. I really love that.
I always say to my daughter, like when I'm stressed, like I'll just be like, Mummy is angry, or I'm stressed. I feel stressed in my body because this is what's happening. And then, and I'm like, I'm not angry at you, but when you say this to me, it makes me feel overwhelmed, and now I just want to cry. And she'll be like, it's cool, Mum. You do what you got to do. And you know what I mean? Instead of you being like, I'm overtouched and like overstimulated, get the fuck away from me.
Yes.
How much easier is it to just be like, actually, I want to punch a wall now because this is how I feel. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. You do your thing then. Like,
yeah.
It's okay. It's just an emotion.
100%.
I know you're not mad at me.
Yeah.
I know you're just like, this is how you feel.
Yes.
Whereas like back when like my parents got, like, I love my parents, but like if they were in a mood, that you'd be like, are you okay? Like, what's wrong? They'd be like, nothing. It's okay. Don't worry about it. And then you're like stuck feeling like,
walking on eggshells.
Have I done something wrong? And then you change your behavior, and then like you grow up to be a people pleaser.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's really important that like language around your emotions, is verbalized.
I really love that.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a really strong pattern here of like, it's all about self. It really is. It starts with you, it ends with you. Yeah. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, like you can create heaven on earth if you want, or you can also create hell on earth, all based on the decisions you make.
Wow, that's really powerful. I've got one final question for you.
Yes.
As just like fierce women in business, how I believe the most like magnetic, powerful women are so both like ruthless in terms of what they want, but they have this feminine embodiment of just like oozing like divine feminine.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily the loudest. They're not like they just have this like feeling about them. How do we get to that point? How can we embrace, as women, how can we embrace more of what makes us so powerful, so beautiful, so magnetic?
Yeah.
How do we embrace more of that?
The first thing that comes to mind is boundaries. Boundaries, not being too leaky with your energy. So calling your power back to yourself. And just making sure that your peace is your most expensive asset. Because when we are kind of leaky, it shows. And I think an embodied feminine woman is like soft but ruthless in the same way, because she's not afraid to say no, because she understands it's for her highest good, and it's for her inner peace that like she needs to protect herself at all costs, but also is compassionate enough to be like, I love you, but like politely no. I think a woman, just also self-love and self-care. And I guess boundaries falls under that banner, but just continually pouring love and pleasure and bliss into yourself as you do to everyone else, but mainly calling your power back and kind of reclaiming all that you have given and just realize that you are so deserving and so worthy of that time and attention and that effort. And in return, by you doing that for yourself, like the people closest around you really get to benefit as well.
Yes.
And it's fucking sexy. A woman who is like untouchable is really sexy.
Yeah.
I feel like you don't want to be saying yes and doing everything for everyone all the time. Like your time is precious. Your energy is valuable. You are so worthy. And I think, we put others on such a high pedestal constantly. And when you realize like, wow, actually, I am the most important person in the room. And it's not selfish. It's selfless, because if you are not around, who's looking after that baby girl?
Yeah.
Who's looking after the business? Who's looking after the husband, or is there to love him and support him? You are so important, and what you bring to this world is important, and it doesn't matter whether it's something on a smaller scale or it's something on a huge global scale.
Yes.
Our contribution and us just being women in general is such a fucking gift. I
love being a girl. It's the best thing ever. Yeah.
I mean, we are literally the portal between like the spiritual realm and the physical realm. Like,
yes.
Do you understand? Like we are creating life. We are fucking amazing. So, it's just women recognizing that and coming back to themselves. And yeah,
I love that. I need to tell you this because it's like a running joke with my clients, but I had this comment come through online, and this girl, she said to me, she goes, and she used the word frothing. She goes, I am frothing on your audacity. She was like, your audacity is so yum. And I was like, girl, are you hitting on me right now? What's going on?
You're like, because it's worked.
Yeah.
That is a compliment and a half.
But first I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, I love the way you are frothing on your... I can't believe I'm saying this. But I'm like, she was like, I think it's so hot. She was like, the audacity. And I have never thought of that in my life, because I just do me and I don't think much of it. Of course, I think I'm quite self-aware. But the fact that she went out of her way, and I think now I say this to my clients, and I was like, just have the audacity.
Absolutely.
Of just frothing on yourself and who you are.
Yes.
And she was like, it is so yum. She goes, I don't see it. She was like, but when I see it, she's like, I'm going to let a woman know. And I was like, okay.
I love her.
Right?
Yeah. But that, and that's who is going to get the sales. Like the woman who is like, this is me. This is what I have. This is how I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
And you're going to fucking thrive. You'd be like, take my money. Cool. I want that, because we deserve to be, that fucking confident, because why not? We get taught to dim our light so much. We get taught that we can't be too much. We get taught that, you can't say it too loud. But I think we're definitely in an era now where women are rising and they're remembering their power, and it's sexy.
It is very sexy. And I always say as well, women who feel like they need to compete. No.
Yeah.
I often say up the top, we collaborate.
Yes, absolutely.
And it gets to be collaboration. And I think when women actually come together, and I think we still have a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of healing the sisterhood wound and genuinely having each other's back. So we don't have to dim someone else's light for us, for our own light to shine. And I think that is just such an important reminder to women, I think, of you get to be in your power.
Yeah.
And I get to be in my power, and it's going to be plenty for all of us. And I think there is nothing more beautiful, even in our exchange, off air, of us just, oh my God, I love you so much. I'm so grateful being here. And just pouring into each other, because it's a genuine want of seeing each other rise. It's a genuine, it would make my heart so happy to see you thrive.
Yeah, because when I thrive, you thrive.
Yeah.
Because we are of service. So it's we want if I am at my best, then I can be at my best for you. I can help you. We can all help each other. We can be the best mums. We can have the best lives.
collaborate, opportunities, locking arms. Yes, I really love that.
Yeah, it's powerful.
You are just a light. You are such a yellow. You have to read the book. Just optimistic, beautiful. I see your heart. I see your beautiful soul and how just so much gratitude you have for life and just being here and connecting. I really see that.
You really took my notes on affirmations being my love language, didn't you?
No, well, there we go.
I was like, yum, yum.
Yeah, no, but I see you, and thank you for coming here and just having this conversation with me. I just think I adore you, and I can't wait to have many more. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, you're an angel. It has been an absolute pleasure. So, and thank you for wearing pink for me.
Oh, you are so welcome. Yeah, wouldn't do anything less. I will put Davina's details in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode, and I cannot wait to be back here next week for another show.
Thank you.
Yay!